You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
You may not be able to handle the truth, but these guys can. Welcome to the Long for Truth Show.
Heretic hunters.
Hey, what do you think of these guys?
I think they're damned and on their way to hell, and I don't think there's any redemption for them. You stink, frankly. That's the way I think about it.
Hello and welcome to the Long for Truth Show. My name is Dan Long, and we're going to be answering the question, what's wrong with Joseph Prince, on this episode of Long for Truth, so stick around. We're going to be dedicating this entire podcast to Joseph Prince. Now, if you don't know who Joseph Prince is, I would be very surprised. But just in case you don't, Joseph Prince is the pastor of New Creation Church in Singapore. And he's very popular there and here because of his teaching on grace. He is a grace teacher. Now, there's nothing wrong with being a grace teacher. I wish every pastor was a grace teacher. We need the message of grace. I am in total agreement with what Jerry Bridges said in his book, The Gospel for Everyday Life, that Christians need to preach the gospel to themselves every day. And the reason why they need to preach the gospel to themselves every day is because Christians still sin. They still fall short on a daily basis. And it's very easy to begin to believe that what you do and how you live makes you accepted by God, makes you accepted and loved by God. So Christians need to be reminded that Christ has already done the work, that Jesus Christ lived a perfect and sinless life on their behalf, that he kept the law, 100% of it, completely as their substitute for them, and then willingly went to the cross and took upon himself their sin and was punished for every time they broke the law. And so we are accepted not because of what we do, but because of what Christ has done for us. We need to be reminded of that every single day. Because although Christians have a new heart and desire to live a godly life and desire to obey the Word of God, they still fail and fall short. And so day after day, they need to be reminded of the grace of God. And so I am all for grace teachers. I think, as I said, every pastor needs to be a grace teacher. Every Sunday morning, Christians should hear the message that they are forgiven, that they have been cleansed, and that they are accepted on behalf of Christ's finished work for them. All for grace. What I have as or the beef that I have with Joseph Prince is not that he's a grace teacher, but that he mixes grace with the false gospel of prosperity and word faith. Now, we are doing another podcast on this because it's high time. Steve and I we may have done a total of 6 podcasts out of those 82, strictly talking about Joseph Prince, where the entire episode was dedicated strictly to Joseph Prince and warning people about Joseph Prince. Now, we've done many other episodes, we've talked about the prosperity gospel in general. We've talked about the dangers of the charismatic movement. We've had interviews with people. We have talked about other false teachers like Joyce Meyer and Creflo Dollar and Joel Osteen. And we have never had the amount of negativity, negative comments like we have gotten just from those 6 episodes or so of Joseph Prince. It just boggles my mind. People think that just because this man teaches and preaches grace, that should just trump the whole message of word faith. We shouldn't even worry about word faith. Who cares? He's teaching grace. It's like it's no big deal. Let me tell you what Joseph Prince does. In my opinion, he does something very sneaky. He lures people in with the message of grace because he knows that we need to hear grace. We need to hear that. And so he lures people in with that message, and then he springs word, faith, and prosperity on them. Now, maybe not all at once, and maybe just in little bits here and there, but he does it nonetheless. I get his email devotionals every day, Grace Inspirations, and he is becoming more and more wide open, more and more pronounced in his word faith theology. So he's a very dangerous teacher, and I think it's high time that we just laid it out again. Just went ahead and talked about the dangers of Joseph Prince again. And maybe that's what we'll title this episode. I was going to call this episode Why Joseph Prince is a False Teacher, but maybe we'll just say, entitle it The Dangers of Joseph Prince Again. I mean, because it just boggles my mind that people are just so, wrapped up with this guy. They're not paying attention to how dangerous this other theology that he mixes in with the gospel, this word faith and prosperity theology, they don't understand that when you do that, you really have no gospel at all. Do you know that Prince preaches grace and word faith at the same time? Now, word faith theology is a works-oriented gospel, so it's very ironic to me that he preaches grace and word faith together. He talks about the freedom of the gospel, and yet he says, oh, you just have to believe. You just have to believe that you're healed. You just have to trust in, and it's a works-based teaching. I'm going to read an article by a man named Robert M. Bowman, Jr. It's a very good article, and it gives, in a concise way, just a brief synopsis of word faith theology. So I'm going to read that article. Let me tell you what we're going to do here on Long for Truth. I'm going to read the article, first of all, on word faith theology. Then from there, I'm going to play some clips of Joseph Prince admitting that he's a word faith teacher. And then I'm going to play some stuff about some clips where Joseph Prince embraces dangerous word faith teachers like Kenneth Hagin. And we'll move on from there. But let me just start with this article. Oh, and then we're going to look at one of his devotions, just one. His devotionals are very short. And I'm going to show you how word faith saturated Joseph Prince is. Now, he's a grace teacher, sure, but he is saturated in word faith theology. And he's becoming more and more pronounced as the months go by. So we're going to be looking at that a little later on. Let me start with this article by Robert M. Bowman, Jr. called Word Faith Movement. And again, this is just a brief synopsis of the word faith movement. Now, starting out with the history of word faith. Where did word faith come from? Who were the proponents of word faith theology? Well, this is what the article says. Much, though not all, of the distinctive theology of the Word Faith movement is derived from the writings of E. W. Kenyon. Kenyon was born in 1867 and died in 1948. Now, Kenyon's mentor was A. J. Gordon, a Boston-based Baptist pastor and faith cure teacher, through whom Kenyon became ordained in the early 1890s. Now, although Kenyon was also exposed to New Thought and Christian Science in Boston, and by the way, that's where the roots of this stuff comes from, New Thought metaphysics. That in and of itself should really cause a person to really step back and say, this stuff comes from the cults. It originates from the cults. So although Kenyon was also exposed to New Thought and Christian Science in Boston, the extent of the influence of these mind sciences, which are clearly heretical, is disputed even among Kenyon's critics. Kenyon, like modern Word Faith teachers, regarded the mind sciences as demonic counterfeits or demonic counterfeits of authentic supernatural Christianity. Over the years, Kenyon became a popular evangelist, preaching, for example, in the churches of A.B. Simpson, a leading and radical advocate of the faith cure message and the founder of the Christian and Missionary Alliance, and Amy Semple McPherson, founder of the International Church of the Foursquare Gospel, a major Pentecostal denomination. Kenyon's latest legacy has been felt largely through his influence on popular teachers of the latter rain movement, a healing revival of the late 1940s and 1950s, spearheaded by the heretical and highly controversial William Branham. One of the evangelists on the fringe of that movement was Kenneth E. Hagin, 1917 through 2003. Hagin claimed to have been healed of heart trouble as a teenager, though reportedly he had recurring heart problems at various times throughout his life. And by the way, we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be listening to a clip by Joseph Prince discussing Hagin's problems and how he, as a teenager, and how he healed himself. And this is Prince talking about Hagin. And you're going to see, Prince says in that clip that Hagin died at home. Well, no, Hagin died in a hospital. So Prince has it wrong there. But he says, let me see where I'm at here. Hagin claimed to have been healed of heart trouble as a teenager, though reportedly he had reoccurring heart problems at various times throughout his life. For most of the 1940s, he had served as a pastor for several assemblies of God churches. But in 1949, he launched his own itinerant evangelistic healing ministry. By 1950, Hagin had started reading Kenyon's books and adopting some of Kenyon's teachings as his own. In later years, Hagin published articles and books heavily indebted to Kenyon, in several instances clearly plagiarizing from his books. The Word Faith movement quickly grew in size and visibility, especially through the exposure provided by the Trinity Broadcasting Network, a TV network started by Paul Crouch in 1973. That same year, Kenneth Copeland Ministries was founded. Copeland is widely regarded as the second most important teacher in the movement after Hagin. Hagin passed away in 2003 after spending several days in a cardiac intensive care unit, suggesting that heart troubles finally resulted in his death, albeit at an advanced age, and leaving his ministry under the leadership of his son, Kenneth Hagin Jr. The movement's most visible and influential teachers today emphasize prosperity and general well-being and de-emphasize, though not deny, the movement's controversial theology. The new generation of Word Faith teachers includes Joyce Meyer and Joel Osteen, both of whom, unlike Hagin or Copeland, are authors of best-selling books aggressively marketed to the general public. So let's talk about doctrines. What are the doctrines of the Word?